What do you got? Pick a topic. What are we talking about? Body count?
Oh shit.
Or better yet, I know. Um, so, what's the biggest misnomer in being a high value man? Feels like what the definition of a high value man is, as far as earning a certain amount for a certain amount of time, um, being useful to the group, what you are, through training, through everything else, being visual, being a leader, all of those things apply. So, what's the biggest misnomer? What do people get wrong when high value man comes into somebody's conversation?
Well, I'm actually going to take it a complete different way to answer your question. And I think that because we're now bandwagoning the the term high value man, people are using it. Men are now using it to their advantage, and that's what bothers me most about it. Is because what was once a an honor to be considered as, it's now becoming that joke, as men now think that they're so special that they can run 20 different women and not have to treat one right anymore.
Right.
So we basically came full circle to being less than as a man, to starting to finally come up in the world, to finally being worth a good father, being a good man, to being high value, only to drop our levels again because now high value men want to run all the women.
Right. So, and these aren't even guys who are actually high value men.
No.
Like, I'm hearing from some of the women that I've talked to, it turns into a whole thing where guys that don't have a whole lot of money are saying that they're high value men only because they're taking the concept and running with it.
Correct. And they're watering down the true effort of men, but I do think that you can be a high value person without money.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
You know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, depending on how you treat your woman, how you validate your woman, how you are there for your woman, it doesn't take any money to do that.
Right.
So the value to a woman is what we're talking about, right? So the one thing that Kevin Samuels always brought up was, you got to look at the masses, and the numbers are telling us these things. Okay, well, the majority of women value men differently than their pockets. It's the scallywag type of women who only want to judge men by money because it's what they're chasing.
Right. Right. Yeah, it does seem like that there's such a swing right or swing left sort of opinion to that. So it's like the guys all think that they're somehow worth worth in the same lexicon of value as far as earning power that you've amassed.
Correct.
And then the women, the overcorrection to that is there's a bunch of, I don't want to say like low grade women, but they're not at the level that you would select. Correct. Based off of what your options are, because of your earnings. And so now you see a whole lot of people who are completely out of their element.
Right. And this is where, again, the tricky part kicks in, right? Because you have a woman who goes after a high value man, meaning he has that salary, right? 6 figures. That's the number we like to toss around.
Yep, 6 figures.
Yeah. So what good does it do for a man to make 6 figures and have $80,000 in debt?
Mm-hmm.
We forget about that stuff. You can make a lot of money, but if you have a lot of debt, your money doesn't mean shit.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's where we lose it again, because we're only focused on the 6 figures. Where you can have a man that makes $60,000 and be debt free. He's still gonna make more of a living, provide more for a woman than the man that's making 6 figures being in debt.
Right, but there's no, there's nothing fantastical about that. 6 figures seems to be like 6 figures now is almost like you were saying, like with high value man. Like high value man, I feel like the term now has become almost like a gimmick.
Correct. That's what I'm
it's
saying.
it's like a punchline. Same thing with 6 figures now. The amount of people who don't realize what six figures actually takes to generate,
Right.
it's staggering to think that there's that many. Like I've seen interviews where women think that 50% and up of people make six figures, and
Right.
there's a part of me that understands it, because if it's like women in Miami or like larger places where you're going to see wealth,
Right.
but to your point, it doesn't mean that they're actually that wealthy. You know,
Not
being
at
on a
all.
boat doesn't mean that you are boat wealthy. It just means
Not
you're
at
on a
all.
boat.
Not at all. I can tell you, um, early on when I hit six figures, it sounded good, but it still didn't even compare to what I made in the military.
Mm,
Because by the time, and that was an adjustment going from the military to a salaried person, right? The tax bracket is naturally different. So they're taking a gob out of your six figure check.
right.
Then you have 401k. If you really give a damn about your future, you're going to go in on that. So that's another couple of $1,000 at times, every couple of months taken out for that. So then you got your taxes, you got your 401k, then you got your medical benefits that comes out top of that. So at the end of the day, your six figures doesn't compare to what I was making in the military when all of that stuff was free.
Because okay, the free part of the military, and I'm sure you're just being taxed a hell of a lot
A
less.
hell of a lot less because
Okay,
your housing allowance is not taxable. Your this, your that is not taxable. Even and then if you stay on base, so yeah, there's a lot of things that you can take for granted. So on one hand, you may not be making six figures, but that does not mean that there's no high value men in the military.
right, right,
You see what I'm saying? So what he's saying. So that's where I mean, like those are the things that can really that's needed to open up people's eyes
right.
about this stuff before we start doing the cliche game.
So do you think there's people are women actually chasing the security and the resources, or do you think they're just chasing the name? Because to your point, you could find a guy who could essentially be making maybe not more in totality, but being able to provide more
Correct.
at 60 to 80
Correct.
versus just having the name six figures.
Correct. And that's exactly it. Because again, you throw debt on there, six figures is gone. You know. So the reflection that the women have to have nowadays, to me, is not necessarily seeking money because that's a trap in itself
Mm,
because you're never gonna know what a man makes. I don't care. You're never gonna know how much a man makes until you're close enough to him to trust you to know how much he makes. So all these women who choose to chase clout, to chase money, you have no idea what's really being made, what's really real. I mean, I fanned hundreds of dollars and fanned myself with them. They were all fake. It's play money because I value my own mighty dollar a little too much to play with it like that. But
right.
that's my point, right? It looks good. It looks good to show, looks good to shake, but in reality, you don't know what that man really makes. And so my goal in educating my children, especially my daughters, is not to chase the superficial because what's going to come to you is going to come to you one way or the other. But what you want to come to you is the goodness that you earned seeking the right person.
Right. So with that said, would you say that the old Big E adage is correct? More money, more problems.
It could be because what you attract is different.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So more money, more problems doesn't seem to apply to married men.
So it's your lifestyle with the
Correct.
more money.
Correct. It's how you live because now you got to watch your back. You because people will rob you for a Pinto just like they'll rob you for your Corvette. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's the places that you choose to hang up. You know, those spots, those clubs, those hoods, wherever you want to go, you're a mark.
So do you think, speaking, going on the married part of it, your take on the saying that high value men don't cheat, they exercise their options?
Again, we're I think that we play on the wording to suit us. You know what I mean? Cheating is still cheating at the end of the day.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's anytime you do anything deceptive to where you're not comfortable telling your partner you're doing, that's cheating.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So
Facts.
you can exercise your rights all day long if she knows about it. If you come home and hey babe, I'm gonna go meet this girl I just met at the mall yesterday. I'm gonna take her out, probably spend some money on her, and we're gonna have a good time. Okay, honey, thanks for letting me know. Enjoy your son. That's not cheating, but it's also exercising your rights to do so.
Right.
We have to be honest, call it what it is, and not hide behind the game that we're allowed to do this because we're high value men.
Right. Right.
You see what I'm saying? That's where the game is starting to get watered down. Like I said, people want to toss it up, and they're taking advantage of the notion that they are now high value men. Therefore, they can do the other things that people like Kevin Samuel says you're entitled to now. No, just because you make money doesn't make you entitled.
Right. Um, it, yeah, that's a, I know he kind of went into more detail where he would say, like, you would work a deal out basically that you're providing this lifestyle for somebody who is now going to accept that this is what you potentially have the options to do. And the way I kind of look at it is like, I'm not a high value man, but I know that I could do the same things, maybe not in the broad, like I can't travel to cheat. You know what I mean? Like I don't have those same options, but within my own city, I would have those same options.
But see, I disagree with everything you just said in the sense that because we've had this discussion before,
Okay.
about high value.
Right.
Like you can't. I don't think you can legitimately say you're not a high value man if your facts are you own your own home. The facts are your car is paid off. The facts are you have no debt. The facts are you take care of your business. The facts are you have money that you can travel anywhere to. You just don't have the means to get it readily available to you because you're protecting it.
Right.
But at any time you want your money, you can get it.
Right. Right. Right.
You see what I'm saying? So you can go anywhere anybody else is going. So you could take the money that you have in the bank, put that in your bank, and guess what? Now you have your 100 grand. So again, it's you have to take the whole person concept, and that's what people don't want to do. They think just because you make $100,000 that you're high value, that don't mean shit because that means that you still may be a butthole of a man.
Right.
If
Right.
we're talking high value, and this is where people lose it, the whole term came about because of what women seek.
That's facts. That is yes. That's
It's what
absolute.
women seek. When
Yes.
they don't seek a cheater.
Yep.
So you just took yourself out of the game. They don't seek a man who can take his women across the world behind her back. Like, so no, you don't even qualify as high value if that's what you're doing because high value is only ranked by what the higher women seek in a man.
Mm.
And
Mm.
right now, the high thing is women seek a man with money. Okay, that is true until they're not. So now you have a pocket full of women who make their own money, make their bread. They're not putting up with your crap. So are you really high value at that point if a woman can basically put you in check?
That's a big piece to that now is that the earning power of women is getting pretty tremendous. And even if in some cases, like the high value man, if women are calling themselves bosses or entrepreneurs and things like that, even if they're not at that status, the fact that they're carrying that much confidence to say, I don't need this from a person,
Right.
it does change the dynamic of a ranking system of saying, okay, I want this person because they can provide this for me. Because now it's like, well, no, I don't need it. because I can get it
I can get
X,
it.
Y, and
Right.
Z sort of ways. Okay, so if we take me out of it, and we just say like there's an average guy, and I pose the same question,
Sure.
do you think that it's the same at that
It
point, or
depends on what he has available to him. Like I said, people don't know what you even have available to you.
right,
So you can't lump somebody in a bucket if you don't know what they have at their disposal.
right,
Like I said, my salary is what it is, but I also have a lot of responsibility. You know what I'm saying? So,
mm-hmm.
and that goes deep because when you have a lot of people to take care of in your family and you have responsibility and you're trying to start a business and you're trying to do this over here, you're looking after your kids and like it doesn't go as far as you would think. So that's where you have to have the investments and that's where you have to have the supplemental income. That's where you have to have all these other things that no one ever mentions when they talk about being high value. No one talks very often about their investments, you know.
Yeah, and that is one of the things that I think when you hear high value, it sounds more like a playboy lifestyle.
Correct.
That it's like yachts, it's jets, it's a lot of traveling, but even most millionaires are working millionaires. They're not, people just leaning back off of old money
Right.
and excluding entertainers, athletes, like we're talking about people who, get up and, not that they don't work hard, but it's a different way of generating
Sure.
money. So yeah, that I would definitely say is plays a huge part in it, because you're right. You can't lump everybody into a bucket, into one place.
So that's why when you say high value man, the reason it was so appealing was because that was a bucket no one saw themselves in because it was new.
Mm,
Now everyone who makes $100,000 getting lumped in that bucket. Well, that bucket's now getting full to where you need something else now to decipher who's a great person. Because high value, as long as we rode that train for the last couple of years, it's gone.
right.
Like we watered it down so much, as I said earlier, that it's not even a compliment anymore.
Mm, mm,
It's not complimentary anymore at all. It's just like a woman saying that, I'm so independent, I don't need a man. That's not appealing to men anymore.
no,
That
no.
used to be that used to be very attractive for a woman to say that because it meant strength, it meant honor. I don't find that attractive because if you're with me, you don't even have to work. You can work if you choose to, but if you're such a boss, now you're competing with me, and I don't want that competition at home. And
Right.
a lot of people would think, yo, well, that's just means you're weak and you can't handle it. No, like
Right.
that means that there's going to be some competition because there's not going to be a hierarchy within the home. Because the minute that woman makes more than you, things are going to shift.
Your power dynamic will definitely be tested.
Yes. That's almost like saying, okay, well, I make $100,000, but I'm going to go move in with my girlfriend who also makes $200,000. It doesn't add up. Why would you move in and live off of someone? Well, that's the same thing in a relationship. If she's making more than you, it takes a very strong woman to not demasculate that man and make him feel less than.
Right.
There's not a whole bunch of women who know how to do that.
Right. Right.
Not being in charge of other people.
Is that the money, or do you think that's just the state of how women have been raised to
It
get to that point of don't need no man? Okay, well maybe I do, but it still doesn't mean he's all that to me because I still have money, I still have all my own things. So when we look at hypergamy, she's actually swimming against the current because
right.
normally they're dating up or trying to marry up. So is that is it more the money, or is it long before that? The rearing.
My opinion, it is very difficult to be in charge of anything and maintain empathy.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Because if you're bossing, if you're running corporations, your focus is not on how other people feel. So
Right.
you kind of check that box and cut that tie. If you want to be up here in stature in life, your empathy level, 9 times out of 10, is going to be low. Put that in a relationship. How is that going to be evenly yoked if there's no empathy in the house?
Right. That's not a thing you can turn on and off.
Correct. Whereas most men were taught to do both. You have to go out there, grind and hustle and work yourself to the bone, and then come home and love your wife and your children. I'm not saying it's impossible. What I'm saying is it's not natural, or as natural as most would seem.
For women to do.
Correct. So by the time you're bossing and you're running shit, your empathy level for a man, your expectations for him is going to be a lot higher than what you would want to be, because you expect him to do his part. You expect him to be this. You expect him to provide just as much as you're doing. Before you know it, you're not looking down on that man.
Is that is that an emulation of men, or is that something that would just come naturally by having to do those things? Do you think?
I don't know. I think it all depends on the background
Mm.
and how people are raised. And like I said, this is in no way lumping all people into these categories that we're talking about, right? What we're
Right.
doing is trying to find the anomalies in between each one. So for this group of high value men, some of them are going to be great, some of them are going to be buttholes. Same thing, strong women. There are going to be a lot of great, independent, strong women, but there's going to be a lot of them that make a lot of mistakes. That's also everywhere you go, you have to look at everyone. It's hard to generalize anybody in any of this stuff because people are easy. People can change. So at what point can you lump somebody in a bucket when their growth constantly has them jumping from bucket to bucket? You know what I'm saying? So you can start off poor and know what it feels like to be ridiculed, but instantly you can become a high value man with the right job.
Right.
Then you can lose that job. Now you're back here. Now you got to depend on a woman who's making more money than you. So then you're in this. You know, see what I'm saying? So we all can do that in life, and it's the awareness and the conversations like we're having to teach the younger generations where to focus this new energy that they're having. Because COVID, man, it made a lot of people lazy.
Yeah. Yeah. With the
And
a lot of handout.
yeah, so all we can do is try to educate people to work hard on themselves. And
No.
then it doesn't
I
matter
agree.
if you're high value, low value, this bucket, that bucket, with a strong woman, weak woman. None of it's relevant at that point if you're confident in yourself.
So we'll stick with kind of using high value, even though we've
Sure.
established it's more gimmicky or not pleasing for you. But what are some of the keynotes that you would say for somebody to maybe not establish like a high value status, but just to realize more successes? Like what were some of the points that the real milestones that you took?
Well, like you said, the first thing you have to do is justify what is success and how do you determine success. And I tell my children all the time, you measure success by the goals that you set for yourself that you accomplish. It doesn't have anything to do with money, it doesn't have anything to do with career. If you set goals for yourself and you accomplish those goals, those are successes. You're a successful person. Um, so live life undefined by money is always going to be number one. You know what I'm saying? You got to manage your self worth within yourself. So that's always going to be my number one tool. But for those who want to chase the dream, you got to have one first.
Mm. That's good.
You got to have one first. With no dream, you're not going to be a success, because you have to measure your positives and your negatives in life. That's everything in life is not. It's It's pros, it's cons, it's positive, it's negative, it's up, it's down. The world is balanced like that. So you have to be able to identify what's truly valuable for you and within you. And without that, without goals, I don't see how anyone can be a success. You're constantly going to feel like a failure if you're not marking your positives, the things that you're doing well. If you're not able to check those boxes, how are you going to know what you're doing well?
Right, right. So is there you have the goals, but then is there a timeline of progress that you want to see certain things happening? Or is that an individual accomplishment as well, just to say, I got to step A in
It
this
has
amount
to
of
be
time?
individual. It has to be individual because at the end of the day, you're the one, and that's why I said set those goals. Because if you fall short, only you know if you made it to that timeline or not. See what I'm saying? So how can you measure how much time it should take to get a degree if you're not even pursuing a degree? But at the same time, how can you be down on yourself by saying, man, it took me 5 years to get a 4 year degree?
You still got the
You still
degree.
got the degree. Was
Right,
your goal to get the degree or was your goal to get the degree in 4 years?
right.
That's why you have to constantly monitor what you're doing because you can easily take the fact that you have a degree and make it negative just like that because you didn't do it in 4 years.
Mm, mm, yeah,
Whereas if you were tracking yourself from the very beginning and you gave yourself 5 years and you made it in 5 years, cool.
yeah. There's probably a bit of that keeping up with the Joneses sort of thing too. If you see 4 years to earn a degree, to your point, it's not a hard and fast rule that you have to, or you have to start over again.
Correct.
So if you obtain it in 5, 6, or whatever it takes, because individually we're all going to go through different things, and so
Yeah.
your 4 year timeline or your 4 years, never mind if it's a timeline or a goal, is different than your neighbor's 4 year timeline.
Correct.
So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Hopefully, it allows people to let themselves off the hook too, because I think what we see a lot in social media is we see people's best lives or we see the finish line.
Yeah.
Like you'll never see a picture of somebody at 13 miles into the marathon. You see
Right.
the
And
tape drip,
crossing, yeah.
yeah, and the hands up and things like
Yeah, you
that.
see them dripping in sweat. You don't see them first starting out.
Right, right. I've always called that the Cribs era, and I thought that that was kind of the start of where we got to this point where there was there's too much of a pressure to put on yourself or to have the facade that you were already living a success because we were shown these enormous houses, immense wealth, and really culture shifting fame from these people, but they were at their successes.
Right.
And so we're supposed to now take that, but it didn't, to me, it never rang true to say this is a way to motivate people because we didn't know that Kanye was, an intern at some of these, these companies for fashion. We didn't
Right.
know that, Randy Moss went to one college, then went to another because of trouble. We didn't know that, what a lot of these guys went through, or women for that matter. Um, but we saw their houses.
Right.
We
And that's
saw,
exactly my point. And that's what it goes back to what we were saying earlier about the high value man. You're not going to know what that man makes. You can look from the outside in, you can look over the fence and see some shiny stuff. But like my grandma used to say, not all shiny shit is glitter.
right, right,
You know, you have to get close enough to know the truth about a person, and what better way to base your relationship off of truth than anything else, you know? And like we talked earlier with admiration, admiration is what it takes to run relationships nowadays. If you don't admire the person based on their grind, all the other stuff is going to not matter. You have to look at someone's hustle and appreciate what they've done in life, and that's the person that's going to stick by you.
mm,
It's not chemistry, it's not lust, it's not sex, it's not this. I mean, a woman with a big badonkey dunk, she may not know how to love you. You know what I
right,
mean? So we got to watch what we chase.
right, right. Well, and yeah, because if she's been chased her whole life for that one thing, that's generally what she's going to lead with.
Correct.
And at that point, okay, well, we've had sex X amount of times,
Yeah.
but do you, what else do you do? Like, so this is the, what
And
do you
that's
bring to the
where, yeah,
table?
what else do you offer besides yourself?
Yeah.
But no one really wants to. Women have a hard time with that discussion
Why do you
because
think that is?
because it's rather short lived,
Mm,
and it's the truth. For a man to say, "What do you bring to the table?" If you honestly don't know how to cook, if you don't like to clean, if you don't have a job, um, what really can you offer anyone?
right.
You know, I mean, think about it. If you're a mother, but yet you don't clean your child, you can't cook for your child, you don't make money to support your child, that's a deadbeat mother at that point.
Right. Right.
So if you can't offer a child a lifestyle, how is that same person able to give a man a happy lifestyle? So every woman should know what they offer, what they bring to the table, and what they can offer a man based on what they can offer a child.
Mm, yeah.
If you can't take care of a child, they call the law on you. You know what I'm saying? But yet those same qualities is what a lot of these single women want to bring to a relationship with a well-established man. I mean, good luck because all the only thing you're gonna offer is your body.
Right. Right. And that can be had anywhere if we go back to the exercising of options.
Absolutely, because here's the thing, man. This is the truth, right? Majority of women who are chasing this money and chasing these men, they're not virgins.
That's a big part of
They are not virgins.
it.
Hey,
So
think about it. A virgin woman, her her mindset and her thought process is not on a man's money.
right, right. Because
So
she's never been in a transactional relationship.
absolutely.
Yes.
So the majority of women, if we're speaking honestly, a lot of these women who are chasing the money, they got bodies.
So how important is body count? Because everybody, it's a long feuding thing. Most of the things I see, women don't think body count is important. Why?
Because they're
Because
embarrassed by it.
exactly,
They don't want to admit the truth, man.
exactly. And I think we've both seen it firsthand. We know some of the same people, and it's not even about sleeping with them, but we've seen enough women who have said, "I'm going to do what guys are doing." They got dogged out a few times and said, "I'm going," and I've always said that won't work well for you.
It will not.
You're not wired that way,
No.
and from at least in one case, it didn't work out well for her.
Yeah.
And when you're just talking about a single mother, you know the she picked wrong, and then she picked wrong again, and you know that's okay. Like, we're supposed to learn from these lessons, but how important? Let's get back to body count, because that's just it's a fun topic to trigger people with.
Yeah, it is.
Um, what are your thoughts on the importance of body count for women? We can start for women.
You mean a woman's body count or a
Yes.
man's body count for a woman?
No, for women's body count, their body count.
The reason that's a tough question, as simple as it seems, it's a tough question because women will never understand what that means to a man.
Mm,
They have no concept. It's like the whole notion that a woman can't teach a man or a boy how to be a man, right? You can teach him this, you can teach him that, but you can't really get him there.
right.
They're never going to understand how a man views you with a high count. You just not, you know what I mean? So is it important? It's always going to be important to a man.
I agree. I agree, because there's something inherently biological that I know there's been times where there were girls that I was attracted to, and then I saw a behavior in them that I couldn't explain why I was no longer attracted to them. I just
Correct.
knew that I wasn't.
Correct.
It was as simple as light on, light off.
Right.
And I think that that's part of it. Part of it is what we know in society. Like, I don't want to bring the girl around to like a party or a function where three other guys have smashed her.
Right.
Like, there's something about that. You want your status to be
protected.
Exactly.
At all times.
Exactly, because you become it, not in a high value sense, but just in a hierarchy sense. If if you see, a guy and you smash this girl, you immediately know you have something over him.
Correct.
And if he knows, then he knows too. And so there even if he's above you somehow, there's a shift.
Yeah.
And if he's below you or at with you, even with you, there's still a shift. There's always going to be a shift if that's known. And but again, just on a biological sense, I don't think that we're meant to want to have to share like that.
It's definitely ego.
Yeah.
That's basically body count is a reflection of ego. And we live in a society today, no one wants to feel played. No one wants to get played. Now, like you just mentioned, right? So a guy realizes that this other man was with his woman. Now imagine if that's a high value man and some scrub from Burger King just got through. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it changes the dynamics, man, like 20-fold. And see, so that's where it's amazing how we shift things in life to suit us. I know a lot of people in the industry that know that their wives are so hot out of their league that they will naturally submit to cuckold that woman into giving her the freedom to do whatever she wants with whomever she wants, as long as he can watch. So again, talk about the body count. To him, it's not going to matter because he just wants the woman so bad.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? That he's willing to share her with multiple men. He's usually a man of power, usually a man of money, usually people who are bored with their money, so they need to seek out other avenues for pleasure. So, like I said, we can tie all this stuff inside and out, man. It's always going to come back to the self.
Right.
You know, if you value yourself and you value the ones that you choose to love, nothing else matters. Nothing else matters.
Okay, so you get really like zen about it, but I'm gonna stick with body count because I'm gonna keep going there. So, what is a high body count? And I guess we can take it by age. So let's say somebody's 25. When does body count turn into like being a 304 or a city girl?
It's hard to answer that. It really is, because it's hard to just gauge in today's society, man, because people just are so openly doing things that I never would have done back in my day.
Right.
I mean, nowadays you have to consider by women, right? So just because a woman sleeps with a man, is that a body? What about if that woman sleeps with another woman? Is that a body?
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So what are we talking about when we start mixing all this stuff together? So then you have men who love women with women. It's, I would say, for me, comfortably, one. That's the most. Like, it's always going to be at that point that that's successfully appealing to me. However, is it normal? No. And that's why it's hard to answer that question in today's world, man, because
Right.
it's good luck trying to find a virgin anymore at a particular age. Good luck trying to find someone who's only had less than 5 partners.
Right. Right.
And until we peel back the onion like we did with the salaries of men and start labeling high value man and separating the higher earners from the lower earners, until we start doing the same thing with women and honestly answering body count questions, if women truly answered honestly and gave true numbers, these lower numbered women, regardless of how they look, would bump up to the top of the list of available women.
Right. Yeah.
Just from sheer respect.
Yeah. Less usage.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Less miles on that car.
Yeah.
The more you're going to get out of it.
And that's without even discussing if these women have had babies, or anything else. So, this is a rabbit hole that just never stops. Like you can just go and
Correct.
go and go because there's so many levels to it. So then it seems inherently like it's not the same for men to have body counts.
It's not going to be the same because, first of all, we weren't created equally. You can go back to Adam and Eve in the biblical sense if you want to, but we have different equipment on our bodies and in our heads. Our notion as men is to seek and destroy, to capture the prey, to bring it home to eat, to go get it. That's what we're taught, to go get whatever we want, go get it. And sadly, that comes along with a lack of empathy for the women. So you can go from woman to woman and be cool.
Right.
Because that's what we're taught to do. Women aren't necessarily taught to do that.
Right. Yeah. The spreading of the seed too, and that goes to, I guess, not even high value in that sense. That's where you get more into alphas or just a stronger lineage to say, okay, this is why we do this far and wide, because we're here to leave our bloodline rather than, allow, I don't want to say lesser males, but just for context, just to say like a possibly weaker version of the same species, is why. So when you look at men under 30, 1/3 are virgins and have not had sex in over a year, which is kind of a crazy stat to think of if you think of like your own years from 18 to 30.
Sure.
This is a different day. Or maybe we were just fortunate not to be in a category like that.
Right.
I mean, it wasn't like it was, life at the Playboy Mansion, but still, that's a weird. When I first heard that stat, I was like, that can't be right, but then again, this is why I think a lot of times guys get labeled as dogs because women are chasing the same guys over and over.
Yeah.
And there's a whole bunch of guys. There's another stat that women polled found almost 80% of men unattractive, which is crazy.
So they're all looking for the same type of guy. And I heard on I forget who said it, so my apologies, but the guy basically was talking about women and their single mothers being in competition.
Yes, yes, yes.
And the lady was like, "What do you mean competition? I'm not in competition with my mother." And he said, "If you are single and your mother is single, you're looking for the same guys."
Yeah.
Like that. That's huge.
Yeah, and
so there's a possibility that if you live in a particular area and you and your mom are single, you probably have been with the same guys, because if you're all looking for high value men, there's not that many out there. You're going to bump into the same people.
Right. And that generation gap
gets smaller.
Right. And the generation gap seems to be closer too as women have had children younger.
Sure.
So if your mother is only, let's say, 15 to 20 years older than you, that's not a huge gap in time, like for a guy who's, say, 30. Correct. To find a 25-year-old and then go after a 47-year-old or something along those lines. It wouldn't be out of line. And yeah, I've heard that same thing, that this is why so many women haven't been taught right, because the women who were teaching them are saying, like, I know you to be my competition. I don't want to see you do better than me.
Right.
And I know I firsthand have had this. I'm sure you've had this too, where warning women that I've dealt with, stop listening to your single friends.
Oh, yeah.
You know, don't fall for this, because single women keep single women single, because for a variety of reasons. If it's jealousy, or if they
competition.
Exactly, competition, or if they just are content knowing that they're not going that direction as far as marriage or serious relationship, they still want the wing girl.
Yeah.
You know, the wine drinker, the girls' vacation, all of those things. And those are the ones that you can find some really good women, but when they have those friends, now this becomes it. To me, it's not a power struggle. It's just, I just know I will say, you're free to do this, but I'm free not to deal with you for doing it.
Right.
I'm not going to control you. I'm going to let you control yourself.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It goes back to honesty yet again, and I think for us speaking, strictly you and I and our circle, the older we get, the more honest we are with each other.
Right.
And I think women are kind of in the opposite end. Um, we hold each other accountable for nonsense. If there's something that you're doing that's not right, I tell you. Right. If I'm doing something that's not right, you tell me.
Yeah.
You know, or if we have questions, there's nothing that's off the table, and we humble ourselves and ask those questions to get that knowledge, whether it be buying cars, 401ks, jobs, whatever. Um, we have honest discussions. A lot of the women I found out over the years, they won't be honest with each other. If a girl walks in the room wearing something and she looks completely tacky and it does not fit her properly, because you know you're going to go out with her and guys are going to look at her and laugh, it's going to make you more appealing. You give her a high five, you go, girl, you wear that outfit and let's go.
Right. Right.
Whereas if you come in there with some bullshit, you'll be like, nigga, don't do it, you know?
Right.
So
right.
that's they're all shifts, man. And that's why I can say the older we get, we can't keep shying away. This is what I wish the younger kids would stop doing. Stop shying away from truth.
Right.
You know what I mean? Get comfortable hearing the truth. Because if you can handle truth, you can handle anything coming your way. We live in a sensitive ass society today that you can't tell anybody anything without them crying, or without them wanting to run and tell somebody on you. You know,
Right.
Back in our day, anybody on the block would whoop you, and then send you home to your mama where you get it again. You know,
Right.
so
Right.
that tough love stuff is where it's at, man. And that is why women have these body counts and they don't want to own up to us, because they don't want to face the truth that they know that they did not hold out for the right people. And so for every woman to say she's got a body, that almost means that's a mistake. So if you got 100 men under your belt, that means you made 100 mistakes right off the bat.
Right. Right. Yeah, and you get into the
Because you damn sure didn't have that many relationships. Nobody has had 100 relationships.
No.
So they're mistakes. They're things that you shouldn't have done. And if they weren't mistakes, then you should feel free and honest to say what you got, and then deal with the consequences that come behind a man looking at you with a number that high.
Yeah, I hear a lot of body count doesn't matter. Okay, what's your body count? Well,
Right.
what does it matter?
It doesn't matter. Yeah.
Well, if it doesn't matter, then why wouldn't you say? And yeah, I think, there's a pride in it, but the opposite of pride is shame. So while you're trying to be prideful, there's actually a lot of shame in your actions, because we know that there's a judgment behind that. And as much as they try to flip it and turn it, and to your point, it's almost lemmings going off of the cliff by empowering each other with a lot of these things.
Right.
Poor dress, poor behavior, poor attitudes, and poor actions, that it's almost allowing me to let you drink a lot the night before a game or something.
Right.
Keep having a shot, because if I get more points, then somehow I look better. But as a
Right.
team, we lose.
Correct.
So yeah, you're absolutely on in saying this is where we need to have more honesty, transparency, whatever it is, even if it's hard truths. Some of the best lessons I learned and some of the biggest wake up moments were to have the hardest parts of life just say, like, this is what it is, and
Yeah.
now you have to dig your way out of it.
Yeah. And that's the sad part, because as single mothers, for instance, a single mom raising kids, knowing the dad is supposed to pick that kid up, she knows he's not coming.
Mm-hmm.
But she allows the child to pack his bag, sit out on the curb, sit on the porch, waiting for dad to come, when all she had to do was just tell him from the gate he's not coming.
Right.
But you try to preserve that child's feelings in hopes that maybe today be the day that he shows up. Look what you're doing to that child, just by not being honest and telling them, hey, he's not coming. Then if he does show up, what a bigger joy for
Right.
that child, than to feel disappointed and that hurt. I know how that feels firsthand.
Yeah.
I used to wait for my dad all day, man, and no, like you develop that that feel of disappointment, to where when you try to manifest that into a relationship, good luck, because that person is always going to disappoint you.
Right. Right. So that and not just in your situation, but in general, is that a failing of the parent that's there to not just be honest with the child, just to say this is what it is. I'm sorry, but
I think that parenting is so hard
yes,
that people try to find shortcuts to do it. And again, if we're speaking honestly, that's what it is. So you it takes a lot to explain everything to a child when you're being honest with them, because a curious child is going to say why, because of this, why, because of this, why. So but in reality, you should be answering those why questions,
absolutely.
but we just don't want to go through it. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, that's what's needed in honesty for that child. you know Clean your room, why? Because I said so. No, clean your room, why? Because you need to learn responsibility at a young enough age that it will benefit you. Like, we got to go through the whole gamut of explaining the truth to children, so that you're not the bad parent.
Right.
Because as long as you're telling the truth, how can you ever be wrong?
I like it. Yeah. That it sets a new precedence, but you're right. Parenting is exhausting, so I can see where one, somebody may feel they don't have the energy, but it's our duty as parents to find that energy.
Yes.
And two, I think more importantly is a lot of times if they didn't have that, then they don't even know the answers. It's kind of like my parents didn't know. I can remember growing up, a credit card was like break glass in case of an
Sure.
emergency.
Correct.
Now it's a different thing, and credit was never explained. And so by the time I needed credit or was going to build it, I had no idea what it did, how it was going to impact me.
Correct.
And the same thing with showing your children some hard truths in life. Like,
Sure.
son, this is what's going to happen. Daughter, this is what's going to happen. Or I can't change it for you, but I can at least explain it for you. But I don't think a lot of people have either the patience or even just the wherewithal to be able to do it. And it's kind of a hard place to put parents, but I think if you can show your children certain areas in life, you can certainly go out and find the tools to show that, like, you have to self-educate.
Oh yeah, man. There's so many tools available to everyone in today's world. There's no reason for ignorance on any level. Um, Yeah, there was something that you had said a little while ago that I wanted to go back to.
Okay.
Um, but I have to think about what you just said. It was what you were just mentioning uh, about the parenting.
Um, Not having the education or the energy to do it.
A little before that.
Mm,
Oh man, it was something good.
with the credit.
Yeah, okay. So you were the glass situation when you were saying that, back in your day, and that's how ironic things are. Back in your day your credit card was used as an emergency only,
Right.
you know.
Right.
So it was taught that you protected your credit. You know what's crazy is what basically shattered that glass?
What's that?
Debit card.
Ooh.
When you start paying things with cash and we started using debit cards, do you realize how watered down a credit card became?
Mm.
Do you realize how easy it was to spend money when you don't have to go to the bank all the way to the bank to take it out yourself?
Right. All right. The
So
check
the
and the
convenience of living life has forced us now to do more parenting than we even had to do back in the day
wow.
because it's easier. And the thing is, as long as we keep living life easier, faster, better, quicker, better, cheaper, like everything that we think is that we're doing in the world, we're making the world a better place. And all we're doing is we're feeding our impatience.
Yeah, we're in a very convenient society and disposable, and
Yes.
as like our generation, definitely we saw patience kind of erode with going to the TV to turn it to the remote
To the
control,
remote control.
waiting at the oven for 45 minutes for pot pie
Yeah.
to what 6 minutes or whatever it is. Circle K's, because you used to go to a place where they pumped your gas for you. Now
Hmm.
you hop out and do it yourself.
Yeah. Because
Um,
now you don't have to wait on the guy to come over here when he's got three other cars to go. You can just do it yourself.
right, quick trips, come and go, all that sort of
Yeah.
stuff. And it's kind of not surprising, but I wonder if it's a reach. What do you think? That this is where we got to how we treat each other as well,
Oh, definitely.
relationship wise.
Because now think about what you just said and put that in a relationship. Relationships are disposable. You know what I'm saying? I don't need a man. I can do this by myself, so I can get rid of him. Um, you have to gratify me quickly.
Mm-hmm.
You got to pay my bills. I just met you, but you got to pay my bills. If you're not doing nothing for me, why should I give anything to you? Like, oh yeah, man, it's that's what we've done, and you tie that together with this newer generation with YouTube, and I don't have to worry because I can just do this. I can be a gamer. I can do this. Um,
OnlyFans.
yeah, man, like we're definitely putting a lot on ourselves as an older generation because these young whippersnappers are coming up with less tools. Why? Because the parents are out working. So guess what? Back in our day, they're working so much. The amount of work it takes to teach and parent, we just got through saying, it's so hard that most people won't even do it anymore.
Right.
So, yeah, the generations that we live in, man, they're heading in a, I'm not going to say in a bad direction, but they're heading in a direction that's less favorable than if we just slowed down and really soaked in nature and appreciated every little thing that comes our way, good or bad, and not try to jump over hurdles that we can actually walk under.
Right. Right.
You
But
know,
that's too easy. You gotta chase the bag. You
gotta
gotta get
chase
out
it.
there
Gotta
and
chase it.
get
Yeah.
money. And unfortunately, at all costs. Like I think like what we didn't get growing up from our parents, at least it. I always felt like it was in the most genuine sense. Like I don't think my parents withheld things from me. They didn't either know any better, or in a lot of cases, working. Working a lot to make ends meet. Whereas now, there's a lot of people I think aren't telling their children a lot of things. To your point, earlier about being in competition,
Correct.
with your child over men, is one, and then the other half that we're going to start seeing. I don't think we've seen the full ramification yet. Are a lot of women that are doing sex work that are trying to keep this from their children, and
It's
the
coming.
internet is undefeated,
It's coming.
and we're going to see a wave of young men who are going to have some real identity issues with women. And if it was, I forget what the theorem is. It's about hating your mother and stuff like that. That was just if your mother was overbearing at a younger age. That now,
imagine your friends watching your mom.
right, to be fully embarrassed. I mean, it's one thing to be embarrassed that your mother showed up to school in, hair curlers and a robe, and and wore you out in front of your kids, in front of your friends. You knew that was a parental thing.
Sure.
But to find out, we went to high school with a guy who was sleeping with another guy's mom.
Yes. And I guarantee you,
The effects.
yes, the domino will continue to fall at that 20 and 30-year reunion.
Yes.
Because it's hard to look at that person ever again knowing how the situation came about.
The effects. I mean, to think that a middle-aged woman was sleeping with a teenager, is bananas. Just off of that in that day, but then to throw into the mix that the son of this woman knew
the guy, and that they were friends, and
the amount of damage is, I don't know where either one of those guys are now, but I can only imagine what that, because that was at least in a bubble. That was one school that we went to. I don't think it was too widespread. But imagine that being broadcast like on TV. If it was like on Jerry Springer and
everybody saw. So that's what the OnlyFans and these quick gratification opportunities are bringing about. The money may be great, but at what cost?
Right.
At what cost? And like we said earlier, what did Grandma say? What don't come out in the wash, it's gonna come out in the rinse.
Yeah.
What you're doing now, it's gonna come up, and you're gonna have to own it. And then, yet again, let's see if body count matters. Then,
right,
when you have a million people who can count how many times they've seen your body,
right,
or your mom's body, how many of your friends have seen your mom's body, even if it was 20 years ago.
Right. It's still then there. It's real
and
time.
Don't let a bully, of all people, be a part of that. Or don't let you be a bully to the kids, only to find out, oh, but your mom does this.
Right.
Man, you're never going to live it down.
No.
You're never going to live it down. And we have to be careful what we're doing to the future. But like I said, we're going into a direction that's less favorable.
Yeah, you can't make enough money to shield your children from that.
No.
And the first time that it comes up won't be the last time it comes up. And you can try to explain it. You can try to say you did what you did to make money. Because I'm seeing this now with what's her name, Amber Rose. That came out, and her son is just about old enough, and I fear that a lot of these kids are going to self harm. Because of that, because it's something you can't get out from under. And private schools are no different. Those kids are just as savage.
Yeah.
And probably in a lot of ways more. Sorry to cut you off, but because they live, if your parents have enough to put you in a private school, then they're high earning. There's an entitlement. So it's just as savage, if not more, than just the regular public school.
Well, you look at even our presidency, man. Like back in the day, I remember us having that conversation in high school, about, if we could ever feel comfortable enough being president. It's like we couldn't even run because of just silly mistakes we made back then.
Right.
Now look at the presidential candidates.
Doesn't matter.
That we have to choose from.
Right.
People will overlook and let anybody can be anything they want to be in life. with no honor.
Right.
So again, we're heading in a direction less favorable.
Yeah. And to your point, that's without scandal. Like you would have to dig for something for somebody back in the day, but
Well,
now
now imagine your child running for president only to find out his mom used to do OnlyFans. You're never going.
willingly.
Yes,
Yeah.
man. Like the things that you do as a parent, man. The one thing that I value is I've never drank, I never smoked, never did drugs, never went to jail on any of my watches as a father. Right.
Right.
I take that seriously. But more importantly, none of my issues in life have affected my children's
Mm-hmm.
lives.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm proud of that. I could not imagine hindering my child's life because of mistakes that I made 10, 15, 20 years ago
Right.
that you can't change. You can't take back. You know what I mean? Like that's got to be rough, man.
Yeah. Well, and I think you did it the right way. Like you've moved out of the area that could you. It's like you're not a crab in the bucket you came up in.
Yeah.
It didn't. There is no opportunity. Somebody'd have to have a really long reach, and you're pretty under the radar. Where all that stuff is concerned.
And that goes back to my single mother, like you think sometimes growing up that your parents don't understand. Will Smith had a song way back in high school about it, but they
Parents just
do.
don't understand.
Yeah, but they do. And the right ones who take the right time yield great kids.
Yeah.
And our mothers did great um, with their explanations and production because they took the time to actually let us know why the stove is hot and why you don't touch it and why this is this and some of the relationship issues slash friendship issues that I had in high school. I didn't quite understand, but my mom broke it down to explain to me you are a black child raised among a whole bunch of white people.
Mm.
They love you because you're running track. They love you because you're shooting that ball. They love you because you're running that ball.
Right.
Um, let's don't forget who you are and where you come from. So yeah, man, it's a wake up call.
Yeah. Agreed. Agreed.
I'm definitely grateful that she never put herself in a position to hinder my life either.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I would heavily agree with that. That
Yeah,
she's exactly who she said she was, and
yeah,
that's a beautiful thing because even to this day, there's uh there's something to revere about that. To say like this is why I am who I am. This is why I'm here at this point. And there's a lot of tough lessons that come with that. And I was always told that you'll see when you're a parent.
right,
Not everybody gets that honor,
right.
which I find it absolutely is an honor to be a parent. But then when you get to that point and you figure it out, it's just like, huh, okay, now I get it.
Now I
And
get it.
yeah, and as tough as there were things that I thought were being handed to me, and that it wasn't out of love, then you realize it was out of love, but it
Yeah.
was it was the only
There's a
thing they
little
could
bit more
do.
to it. Yeah,
Right, which goes all the way back to I think even before we started filming when you're saying like with the girls, you've gotten them to a point where you can say, I've done what I need to do. You have to take it from here.
yeah.
I have
I
to
have
let
to
you make
allow
your
you to.
mistakes.
Yeah, I have to allow you to make mistakes. I have to allow you to bump your head, get them bruises, and I have to be okay with it as a parent. And that's the hardest part of being a parent is that what we think we went through as pains. We try to protect our children from those pains, and it's a mistake. It's a mistake, man. Like my children became somewhat privileged because I lived a lifestyle, or I chose to live a lifestyle that was not impoverished as what I grew up in.
Right.
So I busted my tail, hand over fist, year after year to make sure I had a nice neighborhood, to make sure I had nice cars, to make sure I had nice possessions. Well, naturally, they're going to grow up in that. So they don't know what that struggle was like.
Right. Right.
So now it made my job harder as a parent because now I still have to discipline you in order to understand because there's no there's no sacrifice. There's no, you know what I mean? Like there's no work to be done because I've already done it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I did it for you. So yeah, now I'm at the point. My children at her age that I can feel comfortable letting them make mistakes, and I'm good. Still a choice,
Right.
you
Right.
know, um, because they do know the right from wrong. If they choose to go down a path that they know is not cohesive to what my standards were as a parent, then that's your choice.
Yeah. Is there a point where you step in prior to them asking you for help?
I used to a lot, um, but like I said, now that I'm older, I had a bad habit of trying to fix everybody's problems. If
Mm.
anybody ever told me something before you even had to ask me, I was already working on it. Only because I don't like to ask anyone for anything. Flip side, I don't want people to feel like they have to ask me for anything.
Makes sense.
I would rather just do it for you because I see your need. Let me give you some dignity and not have to have you ask me for anything. If I see it's a problem, I'm just going to fix it. So I'm naturally a fixer when it comes to my children. And I had to learn to stop doing that because they won't learn the sacrifice. They won't know what it's like to have to choose between your car payment and your rent payment
Right.
or eating, but meanwhile you still blow money
Right.
because I know I can go get it from dad. So no, we don't play those games anymore. You're gonna have to learn to balance your checkbook, buddy, and get yourself out of the financial situation you put yourself in. If it's substance abuse or things like that, I would always be there for my children to walk them out of that path. But
Sure.
at the age that they are, everyone's on a good path right now.
That's what's up. So what's something you would impart just as I don't know. It's hard to say like your greatest wisdom, but like what would be something you would impart, especially to younger black men, because to what you're saying earlier, being able to have that transparency and just passing things down in a generational sense. Do you have like a top three, or do you have like a go-to piece of advice?
All of my children had the same advice to adulthood. To my son right now can rattle off. I used to always tell him since he was a little boy, 5 rules of manhood. Number one, put God first. Number two, respect women. Number three, do what you say you're gonna do. Be someone that other people can depend on. Number four, look a man in his eye and don't sit down and shake a man's hand.
Mm.
Number five, maintain your integrity at all times. So those are the things, and the same thing for my girls, except, obviously respect men and don't try to put yourself in a position to beat a man up or fight a
Right.
man that you know you can't win.
Right.
A woman's place is not fighting a man, and vice versa. I would not allow my son to hit a woman. You respect women. That's number one. Number two. So,
That's an interesting point. Not that you were saying that, but it's just giving me things to parlay into. Is there ever a point where men hitting women is an acceptable thing in self-defense? In is there like not out of anger? I think out of anger we are. If you're not in your true manhood, then you will. But finding yourself in manhood means that you're going to control yourself. But does that include levels of self-defense?
as I mentioned earlier, you always have to be honest in the things that you say. So honestly, I can say 50-year-old me has a different outlook than 20 or 30-year-old me would have.
Right.
So I can answer your question by knowing both sides of the spectrum.
What would 20 or 30-year-old you said?
If you put your hands on me, I'm gonna put my hands on you.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? That was just my mind. I don't care who it is, who it was. If you were young, old, male, female, if you touch me incorrectly, I'm gonna touch you back.
Right.
Incorrectly. Uh, Now that I'm a grandfather, now that I'm, older, wiser, wisdom, my spirit is in a different place. Me personally, my threshold for combativeness is completely different. However, I raise my daughters not to put themselves in positions that 20, 30-year-old me wouldn't tolerate because they're at that age now. So
Right.
9 times out of 10, the men that they're dealing with are going to think the same way that I think. Now that's a problem because when those young men decide to fight my daughters, should that happen, now 50-year-old me turns into 20-year-old me again.
William Money.
Correct. So it's a whole, you know what I mean? Like, and that's the way I break it down. If you guys choose to do this, it's going to put me in a position.
Right. Right.
It goes back to Harlem Nights when Richard Pryor was telling Eddie Murphy that, look, you need to settle down and you don't have to go into hiding. And Eddie Murphy's character, Quick, was such a hothead, he ain't running from nobody. And Richard Pryor told him, hey, if they kill you, they're going to have to kill me because I'm going to kill them. It's kind of the same. What about you? What do you think? What do you think is right and appropriate?
First and foremost, right and appropriate is nobody puts their hands on anybody.
Right.
But that's almost naivete for me to think and believe that. I think we're in such a society of chaos that it's almost like looking at a nursery where we teach kids not to hit and to use their words.
Sure.
But how often do we see the adults not doing the exact same things that they would scold a child for if they got a call? So, um, man, yeah, we walk the same walk a lot of times. So, um, I may not have even told you, don't put your hands on me.
Right.
I may have just been the aggressor in that. And that's some of those things, like you're saying earlier, that, we want to try to not live to regret. Like, you don't want it to haunt you, but a lot of times it does. And that's just what it is. But I'm grateful that I'm still alive to regret it rather than having it taken me under. I would tell somebody, try to walk away from it. That you win every fight you walk away from, and that being because you never know the outcome. Right. Whether you get smoked by one guy or 5 of his friends jump in, or you just hit that one guy, falls down, hits his head, and now you have a manslaughter case.
Correct.
And I operate in a peaceful warrior sense. You can embrace my peace or meet the warrior. Right. Very much what you're saying. We say so much of the same things, but we just have different titles on our books.
Yeah.
But we both know how much we stand to lose.
Yeah.
Never mind your freedom or your life, but just in a lesser sense. And yes, monetary items can be gained again, but should you have to lose them in a moment of lost control?
Yeah.
Now, if I know that I'm in a full right capacity to say it was self-defense, I would do my best to fight with honor and subdue rather than destroy, if that makes any sense. But I think at this point in time, I can walk away from just about anything because, like you said, when you get to a certain point in life, there's no, I don't believe anybody has that sort of control over me.
Right.
And if I find myself in that position, I have to come back home. I have to look in the mirror because the only person that gave that away was me.
Yeah.
So
it kind of goes back to, do you want to win or do you want to be right?
Yes.
You have to identify real quick how bad you want to win a situation because firsthand, man. Like even back in my days, like right when I started hitting my mid-30s, that's kind of when it saved some people, because there's some scrapes that we almost had with people over the years.
Right. Right.
That I've been able to just control simply because of my own personal demeanor.
Yeah. Say thank you.
Yeah, man, because yeah, there were times, and very few people have seen that side of me. But when they do, they don't know how to handle it, and it's okay, because I don't either a lot of times. But yeah, there's times when, yeah, I remember you almost getting into it with someone, and all I had to say is that's not going to happen today. And
I know exactly what you're
that
talking
whole
about.
situation
Yep.
was diffused
Yep.
because they knew,
Yep.
not today,
Yep.
not on my watch. And so that helped me. Those times helped me more than anything, because I was not the type of guy to stand up and rah rah beat my chest. You're not going to see it coming. And so a lot of these young guys nowadays, uh, they want to talk that talk, but they really don't have what it takes to back it up.
Right. Right.
And again, so yeah, when it comes to the men that my daughters choose to be with, oh, I'm checking all the boxes. I want to make sure, and like I tell my daughters, what you should look for in a man is someone who can replace me.
Mm-hmm.
Period, on every aspect of life. So, we live in Florida, and I ask my daughters all the time, where's the most safest place you could ever say you've been? At Dad's house. Okay, so the man that you choose to take care of you for the rest of your life needs to make you feel that secure.
Right. Right.
I don't care if it's with other women. I don't care if it's with his friends. I don't care if it's with the words that he uses to describe you. He needs to make you feel that secure.
I like it.
To where he's got to replace me as the head of your security.
Yes. Your youngest niece um, had a similar thing where she was kind of being breadcrumbed into calling her stepfather a form of father or dad.
Right.
And I could see that it wasn't.
Well, before you even go there, I'm hoping that before that's happened, that right has been earned and not just mandated because of mom's relationship with him does not necessarily by default make him dad.
We didn't talk about this before. This is our
and
level.
That's why I said it before you went there, because I know
this is our level. Yeah.
I know how it is, and so go ahead.
No, but yeah, you're going exactly where it should go, and the whole point to that is when I sat down with her, um, I said, "Does does he make you feel not necessarily like dad does, but like close to it?" Or she grew very close to a couple of friends who she liked to call uncle and things like that, and she wanted to call them uncle. And I said, "Okay, that's up to you to go and ask it." But I said, "Does he make you feel like uncle?" And she said, "No." I said, "Then he hasn't earned it yet."
Right.
To your exact point, and it's not that there was ever an issue with calling somebody, "Hey, dad," this or that, because she could get married one day and call her husband's father dad. Sure. Like, it's not that. But to your point, don't force it.
Right.
And that's
There's not a default situation here.
right.
Like with my extended family, my bonus daughter. Um, I remember the conversation she and I had, and she's got three older grown brothers, and never really had a relationship with her father. And so naturally, when me and her mom are together, she asked me, you were my mom, right? Yes. You love her? Yes. So you love me, right? Yes. So that kind of makes you like my dad. I was like, yeah, I guess it does. Well, can I start calling you dad? First thing I said was, you need to talk to your brothers. As much of an honor as it is to me that this little one sees me in that regard, and I've earned that spot, like we said, that she wanted that more than anything. I would never force that on her.
Right.
But my response to her was, You need to talk to your brothers and make sure they're okay with the situation. To which she said, "Can you just answer yes or no?" She's like, "I just want you to cut to the chase, like, you know." And so, yeah, man, that's a tough situation because no man, especially an active father, wants to chew that ice.
Right. Right.
The pain is temporary, but it's still pain when you have not given up your parental position in your child's life. And that's what she's battling. And that's where other adults in the situation have to pay attention. If she's not referring to another person as such, she knows there's no void. As a father, you've done such a great job. She does not feel a lack of presence of you in her life.
Right.
That's why that's difficult. Because most children who have that void, they want it filled. So they will quickly run to the next person and start giving them a term of endearment.
Yeah. Yeah.
By
And
default.
it would be easily earned too, but the word is earned, which
Sure.
means you have to put the work in.
You gotta put that time in.
Yeah.
You know, so then if we're going back to parenting, as we mentioned before, there comes a level of honesty that has to be given. There has to be patience. There has to be all that extra time that we just mentioned that a child needs, the explanations, the hug, the kiss, the pats on the back. Like, you have to do all of that to earn that, you know. You can't be a sideline dad, you know, and then expect that title. I disagree with that.
Yeah.
Like I said, unless the child wants it. If the child wants it, you have to listen to the child.
Right. In your instance, this was initiated by someone who was having the void filled.
Correct.
And
I did that work.
Right.
And I'm still doing that work. And I don't mind. And it's almost like a badge of honor for me because the majority of people who see us interact, they can't even tell, or they're shocked when they realize that that is not my biological child.
Right. I think that's the greater honor is when it's not, because for the most part, if your kids grow up in the house with you, then they just know you as mom and dad.
Sure.
But when somebody comes in at a certain point in life where they clearly know,
Right.
but they see, wow, there's love here,
Yeah.
and they see there's acceptance and there's lessons, there's all these things that by nature this is what they're owed. It's a birthright to have all of those things. And so I don't think that it matters necessarily who provides it.
Right.
Children just, they need that and crave that. So,
yeah. And like I said, that's where the importance of that void is what needs to be looked at or looked upon.
well, I would honestly say, and I know it's like late, I won't keep you much longer, but always a financial thing. I know that in Kevin's definition, and I can't even say it's his definition. He never took credit, but the definition for that was about being earning a certain amount. But when you scrape away so many other things, that's fine. You know, we can have two lanes for it because there are, to your point, going to be some extremely wealthy people who are all of those things, but they're not good people. And I think most people, I know I would trade it for just being valued in the way that you just described,
Sure.
because that's being useful to the group.
Yeah.
Way more than it would ever be in a board meeting. That's going to generate a wealth that's life's riches, not just bank riches.
Yeah, and it's crazy, man, because if you look at a lot of Kevin Samuels' videos prior to him being who he was a little rough around the edges.
Yes.
You know, his look was not as sharp as it was when he was prior to his demise. The way he carried himself, the confidence he had, So hearing a lot of women bashing less than men manifested this person out of him, because he was that same person. He was not revered, he was not feared, he was not loved. He was just a regular man talking on the internet.
Right.
And then he became what he became once he polished his own image.
I admire the way he handled it because it was the average at best, which is what everybody kind of knew him for. But again, to your point, as far as getting to certain levels of success and defining your goals and all that, he was grinding, talking to men for years,
Right.
and nobody cared.
And that's what I'm saying. That's my point. Like, nobody listened to him because he was just a regular guy
Right.
at the time. But by the time he tightened that tie, you know, got that edge around his head, and, got his glasses and everything on his face, what he became was what women pushed him to be. And
It's
then,
his origin story. It's like they're super villain.
absolutely, and now he's a higher earner. He's garnering his respect by telling those women who are calling in talking about, well, I need a man that makes this and this and this. Man, do you realize that that's a high earning man?
Right.
That's where all of this stuff came into, him defending the average man.
Yeah.
And let no one ever forget that. As he rests in peace, he opened up the doors to a lot of people at his own expense.
I completely agree. And as much as people don't like the tone, the thing that I find ironic is we speak to each other in far worse tones than he ever did just to women on the phone or even men on the phone. And a lot of people don't go back and look at how many guys he roasted. Yeah. Way worse than the women.
Way worse.
But okay, you don't like the tone. No, it's you don't like the message.
Right.
But that's a whole different thing, because if he said it nicely, it still wouldn't matter. You still wouldn't want to listen.
Correct. Because you're still not facing the truth.
Right.
And the honesty that we've been talking about the whole segment,
Yeah.
If you're honest about what he's saying and it applies, then you'll take it. It's just like going to church and you think that the minister's talking to you.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you can't call him a liar just, if it doesn't apply to you, most people don't take offense to it. It's only when it's like, maybe I should step up and learn how to cook. Maybe I should not have this bonnet on my head while I'm talking about getting or not having an unsuccessful man. You know what I mean? Like, all the contradictory things that he would call people out on was basically because of truth.
Right. Yeah. Even just to that point about having an unsuccessful man, I'm always of the mind that yes, men are you're responsible for yourself, and you're responsible for. But what was the statement behind every man is a good woman? What was that statement ever for?
Right.
If women now won't support men, if they're leaving quicker, what is it? 80% of the time they're initiating their own divorces.
Sure.
So what was the point of that? I know it's a different time when those statements were kind of created, but and the fact that we've lost sight of those sort of things and the ability to pool resources, whether they're not, they don't have to both be financial, but what you're saying earlier, cooking, cleaning, being able to have somebody keep the house running, right, and somebody being able to fuel the house to keep it running,
right,
are pooling of resources in themselves. They're just giving of different energies.
Yeah, and it goes back to, like we were saying about, what does a woman bring to the table? The reason I would want to know that is because I do cook.
Right.
I do clean.
Right.
I do know how to take care of a woman. So if I know how to do these things, but you don't, there's a problem. Like, we're not evenly yoked at that point.
Right.
And even if I don't feel like cooking or cleaning, I pay people to do that. You know what I mean? I have my own means to do that. And again, so if a woman can't do that, then you have to question, what can you do for a man before you say you don't need one? Can you even get one?
Sure.
And that's what I don't need a man because I can do this by myself. Okay, let's see how that works out for you. But when you do want one, can you actually go get one?
And can you get the ones that you want?
And can you keep them?
Right.
Because a lot of them have the mouth, and the attitude behind it. And I'm not saying women shouldn't speak up for themselves or that they're less than a man, but as we're talking, the older we're getting, we ourselves are not who we were in our 30s. I would not expect a woman to continue to act in her 40s and 50s the way she did when she was 20 and 30.
It's disappointing.
It is, man.
It's disappointing.
It's heartbreaking because it seems like so many want to just argue so fast and not try to find the peaceful balance.
Peace is the word. And the last person that I was discussing things with and seeing if we could, get down the road together, it was like you disrupt peace.
Yeah.
And that's at the end of the day, for me, it's really all that I want. I've never been concerned with how much somebody makes.
Yeah.
I've never been concerned with how many degrees somebody has. I've never been concerned with who they know or what vacations they've taken. None of those things have ever been. Can you just be a peaceful
Right.
and I know people like with cooperative, submissive words like that don't sound right, but can you just be like agreeable? Whatever
Yeah,
you put
exactly.
the word to it.
Right. Whatever it takes for you to fill in that blank. It's like ad libs back in the day.
Right, right.
Will you just be
Right.
fill in whatever word you want to put it in?
And if we can agree on that word, then it's just like men have to stand by their word. Stand by your word. Just can you be that person? But it's
Yeah.
disappointing. And the like I was saying earlier with the being a disposable society, I feel like where we've lost track of this stuff is 30 is 20 is the new 30 or however that goes.
Right.
People wanting to be high school skinny. You're trying to rewind the clock rather than embracing where you're at now.
Embrace the time.
Right. And appreciating what it is that you have. Would you ever want to go back to high school skinny? Like,
No.
I'm a grown man. Like, you're
Right.
talking about your body not being in a fully developed state. I understand the sentiment of what they're saying,
Sure.
but you're still talking about wishing that you were, in a lot of cases, prepubescent.
Yeah.
And that's just a weight issue. But we have the ability, and most people just don't have the discipline to say,
Right.
I can keep myself at a
Because they
healthy
don't want to
weight.
be honest.
Right, right.
I think your phone cut off.
Oh, did it go?
Yes, I was seeing the.
Going on this then.
Yeah.
Holy cow. 90 minutes in.
Yeah, but it's when it comes to relationships, like we said, we have the new word today is admiration. Find someone that you admire, and with that comes, like I would like to say, there's a difference between, or there's a thin line between desire and expectation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you
Mm-hmm.
tell your partner things that you like and that you desire in a partner, that doesn't necessarily mean that they have to do it or that you're
Right.
expecting them to do it.
Right.
It just means that you would love for them to meet your desires.
Yes.
There's certain things a woman won't do in the bedroom.
Right. Right.
However, if my desire is for you to do X, Y, and Z, I find more pleasure in the fact that you would do certain things just because I enjoy them.
Agreed.
You know,
Agreed. There's something about
you don't
the
have
effort.
to do it just because I say do it, or and that's again where we ruin things when we don't communicate properly what we're trying to get across.
Right.
If a woman comes in my life and she's like, "Hey, I need a man to take care of me," is that an expectation or is that a desire?
Right. Right.
Do you desire a man to take care of you? Maybe I can, maybe I can't. And so the buzzwords that we use nowadays, man, we got to toss them, and just stay Webster dictionary all the way. You know,
Ooh, you're asking a lot.
let's just stay Webster.
You are asking a lot.
Because when we try to wrap things up into these cliches, man, we lose the strength behind the actual words. You know.
Oh, agreed. Agreed. All the way around. My favorite one recently has been entanglement.
Oh,
I
yeah.
understand what, but you put you put a bow on something that wasn't a gift.
Right.
You know, that was not what that man needed to have happen to him. You
And
know,
it's so crazy that when you hear that word, you think of two people,
right, right.
2 out of 3 anyway.
Yeah, when did we
Um,
ever hear that word? Like, unless you're,
yeah,
it's just not a common word that you would use.
correct.
Same, even though it's way different, but insurrection.
Yeah,
Like, well, why can't we just call that what it was?
right,
But we take these things and we'll water it down with a certain usage of word, or we'll use it completely wrong to fit our own confirmed biases, such as calling protesters rioters,
right.
which was a huge thing. I know we've talked about that whole thing before, but um, yeah, there's levels to these words, and you're right. If people were just held to the accountability of the letter of the law of saying this is what this means,
Right,
did you X, Y, and Z it, or did you not X, Y, and Z it?
right,
We'd have way different outcomes,
right.
but we'd get to the heart of matters way quicker too.
Definitely.
And I think with that, we'd be able to have what you've been saying this entire time is have more honest conversations,
Yeah,
because that's going to get us. I could accept a lot more. I think the biggest part for me personally is when you lie, you've insulted my intelligence.
correct.
And I'm a pretty prideful person with that. I know I'm not in a Mensa sort of thing, but it doesn't have to be.
Right,
Just to say, look, I know what I know, and I know something's not right. I know how you move. I pay attention.
right.
So if there's something off, let's talk about it. But if you're going to continue to deny it, we've got a real
We got a
issue,
problem.
and
Yeah,
this is the kiss of death.
because it begets disrespect,
Exactly,
and
exactly.
I'm gonna lose you anytime there's a level of disrespect that's crossed. Because I don't go out of my way to disrespect people.
Right.
But and that's the thing, man. It's like God gives me the gift to gab, so I can insult people so well,
Right.
just verbally rip you apart. You know what I mean? At my size, I can do damage if I want. I don't understand why most people just can't take a peaceful route the way that I do, because I could get way ahead in life using negativity to bully people, to manipulate people, to insult people, to hurt people, to cause problems to people.
Right.
I just don't want to, and at the end of the day, my blessings come because I just want peace. I just want peace for others. I
Mm-hmm.
have empathy in my heart for everyone until you've crossed me. And even then, I'm going to give you the opportunity to live your life how you see fit. I just won't be a part of it.
Exactly.
I don't need to be vindictive. I don't need to come back after you. We just need to kind of peacefully let things be.
Right.
Um,
Right. Yeah. That it becomes one more thing that you have to carry,
yes.
and it's the old spiritual sword and shield by the riverside. Like,
Sure.
I don't want to have to keep going and digging up armor.
Right.
Like it's there for a reason.
Right.
And study war no more is exactly it, and that's at all levels. I think one of the biggest outlets that really gave us a lot of reason to be peaceful was playing ball.
Yeah.
That last stint, to be able to be violent in a very controlled way, to be very hyper competitive,
Yeah.
allows. I think it gives an outlet that a lot of people don't have. Um, And it wasn't just the gains, but it was the working out. It was the recovery. Like there was a whole process to doing that. So it becomes part of a therapy. And now I've experienced enough. Like I've been beaten up enough. I've delivered enough blows. Where it's just
taking a share for sure.
yeah. And it came at a great time. Cool. All right. Any parting thoughts?
If you worry, don't pray. If you pray, don't worry. It's a motto I live by, man, and it's gotten me pretty far in life. If there's a lack of trust in one's relationship with God, then just leave them alone. Um, but if you ask for something, you truly believe in Him, then trust that He's going to do His part.
I feel you. All right, man. I appreciate you.
All right, brother. Much love.
Much love. And guys, we're out of here for now. If you like the content, let me know so I can bring him back out from Florida. And we'll talk to you soon. Do you know the sign out?
Peace, love, unity, solidarity.
There we go.
My man. You should know better than that.
All right.